with Slants.
The draft takes have been coming hot and heavy over the last few days. I'm going to single one out for you right now, though. Ladies and gentlemen, fourth-round pick Bailey Zappe is not here to replace Mac Jones, okay? Can I just get that out of the way? Unless you've been hitting it real hard for the last few days and came to the conclusion that Mac Jones is in any kind of peril at all, relax and understand only Robert Kraft has more job security in Foxborough. Game plan for the rest of today's program. It's a dangerous draft, ladies and gentlemen. Your favorite pick. We turn it over to you guys to hear what you got to say. Kay Adams returns, and just in time, it's a goodbye, Mego. All right, but now it's time for my slant.
What is your response to those who might say with Cole and Tyquan, just the idea of, were they overdrafted? You know, could you have waited and maybe got them later?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really easy for people to say. Nobody knows what the teams are gonna do behind you.
Yeah, well, you don't know, do you, Matt? I understand that. But recent history has proven that so many of the Patriots picks were not going to be selected by other teams, and with good reason. But all that said, they're just kids. Cole and Tyquan, Marcus, Jack, and all the rest. It's the first job out of college, so give them a break. Okay, you're right. It's not their fault they were drafted by the Patriots way too soon, just like it wasn't Duke Dawson, Jordan Richards, Jawan Williams, Dalton Keens, or Devin Asiasi's fault when they got picked too soon. Who cares what everyone else thinks? Patriots got their guys, just like they did with players who couldn't play. It's, of course, an ironic twist that guys they selected early that everyone agreed were good players, N'Keal Harry, Isaiah Wynn, Josh Uche, they haven't developed into what anyone thought they would be. So between overdrafting and not developing, the Patriots have been killing it, and I do mean killing it on two fronts. I don't know what happened. They had a really nice draft last year going with the chalk players from Alabama and Oklahoma and Michigan. They were taking guys where most people agreed they would go. Then they come back this year and they go Chattanooga and Baylor and Houston, Arizona State, South Dakota, and Western Kentucky. They took a guard in the first round to fill a hole they created a month ago. They took a human funny car whose combine testing shows that he changes direction like an alligator. They took two corners who better be as tough as advertised because the two of them don't add up to one Trent Brown in terms of size and weight. The speed they need to help on defense, it's supposed to come, the speed they need to stop Josh Allen, it's projected to come from guys who washed out elsewhere. Matt Wilson, Raekwon McMillan, or guys who are being thrust into spots like Cam McGrone. Check this, of 28 players the Patriots have taken since 2019, 8 of 28 didn't play at all, including 5 of 8 selected last season. Fine, there's some apprenticeships there, whatever. But only 2 of the 28 drafted players have played more than 75% of the snaps. Mac Jones, Mike and Winner. Only 12 of the 28 have participated in more than half the games the Patriots have played since they were drafted. Okay, so basically, the upshot of the whole thing, it would be worse if I went back past 2019. Good luck, boys. You're gonna need it. Meg, too negative?
Not too negative, because what did we say on this very show last week? Or at least I said, don't get weird. Don't get weird, Bill. And it got very weird. Now, I'm not in the practice of days later giving out grades for the draft because I don't want to turn into someone's meme 3 years from now when one of these guys skyrockets and everyone says, look how dumb the media is for grading all of this.
Don't be negative.
But I will say that in this Patriots offseason, this is just the latest head-scratching move in a series of moves that are so head-scratching, it feels like we're breaking out in head lice around here. Because the calculus of, did this team get better? Does it look better, at least, than the end of last season? It doesn't even necessarily add up in terms of what you pushed out, be it coaching, be it players like we're talking about in the draft and what you picked up in free agency, and what we're looking at starting camp with. Mm-hmm. Which of these guys is going to be able to make an impact in this upcoming season?
And that's why I started highlighting the players since 2019 who came into the program. When you start to really scrutinize contributions from Anthony Jennings or Ronnie Perkins or Chase Winovich, players who third-round picks or higher, Asiasi and Keene, should be impact players, if not in their first year, in their second. They haven't been. And when I look at Tyquan Thornton and the number of wide receivers the Patriots already have in-house, I'm like, how's he going to wedge himself into this equation as a second-round pick who's about that thick? Okay? God bless him. We hope he does.
I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to get to that later in the show about the thick there. Okay. Let's go to from the stands. We heard a lot from social media over the weekend about how fans felt, but you took your own poll.
I did. I took my own poll, and I put it out there on Twitter, and I said, hey, which one was your favorite pick? Tyquan Thornton. People like the guy who runs in a straight line like a funny car. After that, ain't nobody got one, 33%. Cole Strange checking in with 16%. Other, 15%. Mine would have been other. I would have said Marcus Jones, or I ain't got one.
Let's hear from the people specifically. Matthew says Pierre Strong was picked where he was supposed to be, and he could replace James White and or Damian Harris next year. I almost picked Thorian, but he was a bit of a reach, and we will be scrutinizing him against the other receivers taken at the time because he set off that rash of receivers.
He did, and the Patriots jumped ahead of those guys because apparently they thought it was a five-alarm fire.
Dana says Marcus Jones would be my pick. Based on what we know of the first two picks, they appear to have been reaches. Now, ultimately, it will play out on the field, but given the information we have now, Marcus Jones appears to be their best pick. A lot of guys high on him.
I like him too.
What he can do. All right,
okay,
Paul
fine.
says, that's like asking me to pick my favorite root canal. All kidding aside, the only thing I know about college football is what the experts tell me, so I will take the wait and see approach. Wow, very cautious there, but we're doing a show today, so we're not able to take that approach.
Well, we can't take that approach, and if you are trusting the experts from Sea to Shining Sea had so many of these players ranked lower than they were taken, and as a result, you look at this and say, my God, are the Patriots zigging for the sake of zigging when everybody else is saying to zag? Or are they onto something? And again, in recent history, there's so many zags that should have been zigged.
Zigzag zapping?
Right. You know, I'm actually reading a book called Agent Zigzag.
Yeah, you told me that I gave you that book and I didn't, for the record.
It's a Warren Sharp tweet. Warren Sharp, respected friend of the show, a great analyst. He said the Patriots' pick of quarterback Bailey Zappe doesn't bode well for Mac Jones. It's just flat out odd. Only time since 1990 a team has drafted a top 15 QB, then used another the next year in the top 140. David Carr, then of course Dave Ragone. Be that as it may, the Patriots did it. And I hit this at the top of the show, and I'm going to hit it again now because I don't want to hear any further discussion about Bailey Zappe and Mac Jones needing to look at the rear view for Bailey Zappe. It's cuckoo. I think our guy, Wiggy, jumped on this idea.
It's bonkers to me. And this is where, okay, maybe those stats back up something to be concerned about, and it could be a conversation starter, but context matters. The Patriots love Mac Jones. He was in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, he fell off a little bit, hit that rookie wall, but there's no chance that this guy's anything other than a wonderful backup for Mac Jones, in my book.
Bottom of the glass. Patriots draft grades are out. Meg said that she's not going to jump to any conclusions, but plenty of people did. And I brought home a report card like that, third term, 8th grade, and it wasn't good for me. And I don't know how it's going to go for the Patriots, but it wasn't good for me. Kay Adams, NFL Network, joins us to make sense.
You are at the nerve center of the NFL. You are really the nucleus.
I really
And I want to know first, from your perspective, what your thoughts are on the Patriots draft, because it's coming across your board. You spend hours every day on this, and you have a more 30,000-foot perspective.
But I also have a human approach to it. And I don't preach, every team, all 32 of my children in my nucleus, they all value these players differently. So there is a bit of, there's what you think and what everyone thinks, what the media collectively thinks, but none of it matters. It's all what goes on in that front office. And with the Patriots, I've become, because of my human element of this, Cole Strange's biggest fan, Tom. I am waving. I want the jersey. I'm hitting up Stacey James. I want to be his best friend, just because I understand we passed up on talent. We passed up on a lot of defensive needs that the Patriots have. But we don't know. This kid he logged 1 sack in his entire college career. PFF had him graded out as the best guard. He's versatile. He can play anywhere on the line. You got to protect Mac Jones. I'm not mad at the pick because I've just seen too many times. And here's what I'll really say. When it comes to that, when it comes to the offensive line, Tom, is there a position that, or is there a group where I trust the Patriots drafting more than the offensive line? No. They always do pretty well, and they know what they're doing when it comes to the O-line. There's some other areas that are left to be desired and are much more needing improvement as far as draft reputation go than the O-line. So let's leave Cole Strange alone. Then
Okay.
you got Thornton. I like to listen.
Nobody's killing Cole Strange. It's not Cole Strange's fault. And I do sympathize with this kid being in his first year, his first post-college job, and everyone's saying, well, why'd they get that guy? Right. It has more to do with the decision-making than the player. It's an exceedingly safe pick, which is the point you're making.
The heart wants what the heart wants, and they clearly had to have fallen in love with him. And it does seem like a bit of a settling pick, doesn't it? Like they reached, and I understand that, but there's also just a safety in taking.
Just get it done.
There's just a safety in taking that position. We can use him everywhere. Small school, it's sort of cute, but I'm okay with that. So where I sit every morning, it's all speed, right? Speed. The Patriots are behind. Add a vertical threat, even though you have a full wide receiver room of speed. I don't know why 100%. That didn't work out. And I'd like to see Aguilar out there at some point. But you have this Thornton kid, Burner. You know what? They also added speed with the Pierre Strong pick.
Yep. And he's a James White kind of guy. If it projects that way, he can come in, and they need that. What I look at when you're talking speed is you need short area speed. The Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, get open in a phone booth guy.
Those are the days.
They were the days. And why would you not want to go back to those days of Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, the guys who get open in tiny little areas and then make guys miss after the catch in 3 years playing for Baylor? Our guy Tyquan, fast as he is, only broke 11 tackles. He's only like 3 yards after the catch. And I think the Patriots need easy throws for Mac Jones and someone to make yards after the catch.
Okay, that's what we saw, though. Tons of easy throws last year. And as a fan, I want to see some deeper throws. I want to see some downfield stuff from the Burner. And I don't know. But to me, the biggest question, and I was actually up in New England, it was very cool to be back and sort of get the vibe of all the fans up there. Who's calling plays? Like, what's going on with the coaching to me is such a question mark up there.
Which is kind of hamstringing Mac Jones' development because obviously McDaniels is gone, Mick Lombardi's gone, Bo Hardigree's gone. Those are not, Shula and Landry in Bo Hardigree and Mick Lombardi, but those are guys who had Mac's back and he felt comfortable with. And right now, it looks like Nick Caley might be the play caller. Oh. Matt Patricia and Joe Judge will be involved as well.
Patricia's just on offense now? Why is no one?
He's helping with the offensive line.
No one's talking about this. Why is no one in my world talking about that?
I don't know, because it's funny. And I want to ask you this because, perception nationally continues to be the reverence for the Patriots and Bill Belichick, where he doesn't come in for criticism because of his resume. And I think there's very much a cautious approach to second guessing Bill that comes with but he's Bill Belichick. Whereas around here, there is much more readiness to say, look, the recent past doesn't indicate that the Bill Belichick resume is the same as it was. Are you seeing a creeping willingness at your place of work where the criticism is less gentle and more pointed?
No, I think it might be the worst insult to the Patriots. Usually we talk about them a lot, and we're not as much as usual. There's not a huge focus on what's going on in New England. That focus has shifted to the Buffalo Bills. That focus this off season has shifted to the Dolphins. There's some intrigue there. They've got some real offensive weapons. And, I don't know how you guys have to stop that. And defense question up there in New England. So I don't know if I read Peter King, no one more reputable than him. I think, didn't he call Cole Strange's choice naive?
Naive.
You don't think that's critical? That's pretty scathing.
No, that's what I mean. There is a creeping willingness to just start to open up. But I do think, like, for instance, and it's not a great example.
I always thought that his kryptonite, like, at least when I think of the draft, I think if Bill Belichick, even 5 years ago, has a weakness, it is the approach to that. But ultimately, there is a respect that I do think he's due, and a little leeway when it comes to that.
What has it been like this off season for you to kind of be in the nerve center, as I said before, with, it's Jimmy, it's Baker Mayfield, it's the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill, it's Devontae Adams, it's Brady. You have to juggle it all.
I love free agency is my favorite time of year. Hands down, 1,000,000%. The draft is wonderful and cute and optimistic, and all 32 teams are like flowers and rainbows and cupcakes, and everyone's happy, and there's so many great storylines. And then it gets picked apart. It's just, the draft is wonderful. But the drama of the free agency, who got jilted by who, the deals, who's getting what, who's not happy, who's disgruntled, the value of players, like it's, that part is so, the retooling, are you retooling on the fly versus rebuild? It all becomes so apparent. That is like a fascinating couple of weeks. And this year was the Russell Wilson, all of that. But I mean, imagine sitting there and you think, oh no, there's nothing to talk about. There's always something to talk about. There's always a Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay, coming back, retiring, unretiring narrative that goes on. And it's so fun. You just have to go on the fly, go with it. And it's so much easier for me personally, easier than any other part of the year, especially the draft. Cause I don't, college football, I'll start paying attention once I know, I get a huge binder. I start, watching and breaking things down. But this is like guys who are what they are in the NFL.
Right.
And they have
exactly. They're finished products changing teams.
Devontae Adams thing, the Tyreek Hill thing, it's fascinating because these are bona fide stars making these moves and decisions, not just based motivated on money, based on what they think is a better situation for them. I love it.
Now it's time for the mega hot take.
The Patriots drafted the fastest wide receiver available this year in Tyquan Thornton, but amid throngs of concerns about his hand size and three-cone time, I'm seeing a lot of trolling about this 6'2" Roadrunner weighing in at 183 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
Screw 'em, Ty! From one string bean to another, they're just jealous of our metabolisms and praying mantis-like body.
Flex on them!
Don't they know these brittle bird bones allow you to fly? It's just hard for folks like us to reap gains when we're young and active.
Yep.
But you'll get on the program. You're only 21. There's plenty of time to add some heft. We can do it together. It just takes dedication.
Man's got to eat. A man has got to eat. Good job, Meg. Appreciate you. Again, not a moment too soon. We're moving on from her. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Quick Fire. Hit it, Meg. Swallow that.
Let's start out hearing from Matt Groh, because he was talking nonstop about these draft picks in a very particular fashion.
Defensive?
Number one thing is you got to consider what the player does and how the player is going to help you. You want to get faster, just like you want to get tougher, you better get tough guys. You want to get faster, you better get fast guys. And I don't know how many guys out there are faster than Tyquan.
Well,
I don't know how many guys out there are faster than Tyquan.
Again, I enjoy listening to Matt Groh. And it's fun if we can get to a point where we're sword crossing and having real engagement with a voice from the Patriots at a podium where we can have a give and take. And he can point these things out. We can push back and say, yeah, but Matt, we're not talking about down the field speed to just sprint past people. We're talking about short area quickness, the kind that Wes Welker and Troy Brown and Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola brought that made it easy for the quarterback to throw 4 yards in game 12. Maybe we can get to that point with our friends.
And that's what's interesting about this draft, because we've seen some arguments, heard some arguments about, did they get the best value? Did they squeeze everything they could out of these draft picks? But really, it comes down to, did you fill what left? Did you fill what's left and what you haven't gained in the draft over the past several years? And you brought up the slot receiver there, which, they went with another very fast, speedy type like Aguilar, who hasn't worked out here. And that brings us to remaining holes. To me, slot receiver is the position post-draft that is still most glaring. I know they want it to be Jacoby Myers, but he just hasn't had the fast twitch that those other guys on the list you mentioned bring to the table.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned slot receiver as its own position, because it is. Slot receiver is not wide receiver by definition. Wide receiver is boundary. Slot is usually on the inside, and the game is totally different in there. And Jacoby Myers has absolutely worn the suit and worn it well. Even though the pants are too short and the jacket's too tight, he's done a good job there. But you need somebody who fits that suit a little bit better and let, as you said, a fast twitch guy take care of that business. And Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers be those kind of Jabbar Gaffney Dante Stallworth, although whatever. You get my picture.
Do you agree that that's the position that is the most glaring
No.
need that remains, or is it linebacker?
100%
Because that was
it is,
another one.
It is linebacker, sideline to sideline, full-speed linebacker, and that's why the unfair plate of food in front of Cam McGrone might be hard for him to finish, because he's a fifth-round pick who just missed an entire season with an ACL, and now the Patriots are counting on him to be their speed guy.
All right.
Can I take over this?
Do we
quick
have
fire?
something else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Meg's all done. She's going to WEEI. Okay? We appreciate the fact that she jumped out. Here are some of Meg's greatest hits. Look at you. What did you have? The entire cake?
I was a big baby.
She was a big baby. She's still a big baby.
I get it. I watched Cam quarterback 15 games in 2020, and you shouldn't let that guy cook.
Why isn't it fun to play with a bridge?
I don't know where it's going.
You don't know where it's going.
This is my Italian widow dress. What do you think of it? Today, on the day of Tom Brady's retirement, you bring me this.
After 3 years, it's clear that it's just time to move on to the next. Time to say au revoir, Nikhil.
You can't get up for this one? You might as well just stick your fist down into your garbage disposal.
A little too far.
But in the end, if only money talks, make it rain on Mickey D.
Those stuck together. You didn't make it rain the way you wanted to make it rain. It's not going to do any damage at all between now and Thursday. You're not going to be a terror off the edge. Get your head around that. Again, another reason that she's got to go. The roughhousing.
People don't know that we were only allowed to do that in one take because they weren't worried about you. They were worried about the floor, the fancy floor.
The floor,
Thank
exactly.
you so much, guys.
You guys cracked to the floor. All right, find Meg on WEEI.